As this staff has heard probably at least 100 times, because I say it at every single confirmation service, that what those who are being presented for confirmation are doing, and what we do in the reaffirmation of the commitments that we have made, is that we make ourselves available to God for service. We are called servants in the prayer, and we're committed to service, which means we're committed to doing something. And that confirmation at its heart is not merely, although it is, a deeper commitment to an affiliation, recognizing brothers and sisters to whom I now am making obligations and commitments. But even more important than that, it is a commitment in the context of this body to whom you are saying yes, we are saying yes again. We're committed to do something. In other words, empowerment for service is the heart of what we are committing ourselves to. And so the question naturally arises, at least it should, well, God, what is my service? What are you asking me to do? And what I would want to say, particularly in the context of the lessons today, is we're invited to, in essence, be a part of what it is that God is doing. That God calls us to himself, sets us aside for his purposes, and therefore for his service, what he would have us do. And one of the windows into what that is found in the stories that we hear in the gospel reading. In other words, what is God doing? He's looking for his lost sheep. He is going after the people who have been claimed by him in advance of the rescue to be his own. And he reaches out, leaving the 99 to even go and find the one. It's an astonishing story because although I know this is true from what I've read about shepherds and sheep in Palestine, that the sheep really do know each individual sheep and recognize one for the other, as opposed to when I look at a flock of sheep, they all look exactly alike. But he does. So that when Jesus says in another context, he calls his own sheep and calls them by name, meaning them, recognizing them as very unique individuals. So it is with us. He doesn't look out and see a sea of humanity. He, to change the metaphor, looks and sees who's in the room and who's not in the room. Where should we be going? Going to the people who are not in the room. Who's not here? Who are, in fact, the lost. And at a very personal level, for us to be committed to that kind of life and to that kind of work means yielding in part to the Lord to continue to redeem the lost places inside of me. In other words, I'm oriented, and it's laid out so clearly in the Philippian reading, where Paul talks about all of his theological, genetic, educational pedigrees, and says, but, and then there's the big transition. That, in essence, is a work that God does in us. Because if I'm going to be a part of what God is doing, the transition it means laying down what I'm doing. Particularly if what I am doing is relying on my education and my pedigrees and my connections and my financial goals, and you could kind of go on and on and on, as a way to, in essence, protect my own interests. When Jesus says, he who saves his life will lose it, but he who loses his life for my sake in the Gospels will find it. Because I can get, not just can, I do. I get preoccupied. I get preoccupied by how I look and what my priorities ought to be. And, it's really endless. The self-focus that is, in fact, in most of us is endless. we live with an extraordinary level of self-preoccupation. And a part of what the gospel and the epistle, the lessons call us to, is a refocus, quite honestly, that only God can do. I mean, there's a wonderful and delightful realism in the collect that says, it is only by your gift that your faithful people offer you true and laudable service. Left to my own devices, I'll always think about me or the people that I love and care about, because that is, in fact, a benefit to me. I mean, there's a kind of relentless self-centeredness about it all, even in my most tender and dear relationships. I can't help it. I mean, do you understand? I can't help it. And I need God to work in me what I think is rightly described as a conversion, where I'm going after myself and my interests and my own preoccupations. And God, asking God to help me do that, by the way. I mean, where do my prayers go? My prayers, God, are going toward asking God to help me do what I feel like I should do. So even the very nature of intercessory prayer has that tinge of self-centeredness about it that continues to drive me, not toward Christy, but toward my own reflection of myself as in a mirror, where I'm continually trying to both become and accomplish. Only God can take that and say, no. And instead, open my eyes to see life not from this vantage point, but rather from the kingdom's vantage point, from God's vantage point. Because the capacity to be able to be a part of what God is doing is, in fact, not only having room in your heart to receive it, which is what this is, but out of that, the capacity to see the need. The actually notices a missing sheep. If he's preoccupied by a whole series of other things, he's not going to notice the missing sheep. Well, you know, if you got 99 out of 100, that's pretty good. See? Cut your losses. And so I need God to turn me daily from this relentless preoccupation with myself as in a mirror to what the collect describes as true and laudable service, which means being a part of God's purpose, what God is doing, what God's focus is. The Son of Man came to seek and save that which is lost. That's the one-sentence summation of the gospel lessons today. And therefore, because I'm invited, this is more glorious than anything I can even begin to articulate. I'm invited to be a part of what God is doing. He's letting me in to do something higher, more glorious, more costly, more demanding, more freeing than anything that I will discover going that way, as opposed to this way. It's only the person who is turning who can say with any honesty anyway, whatever I valued over here, I count as loss over here. So I like the fact that we have confirmation here, because what it does, among other things, it reminds me of what my priority is meant to be, what the focus is. It's not my agenda, it's this. Where are you sending me today, Lord? How can I be available for you in what it is that you want? Help me to be a part of your true and laudable service today, because that's what we've said yes to. So, sisters and brothers, as these are presented for confirmation, Let's say, okay, God, no matter how being dragged away over here I feel, I'm counting on you to turn me. That we may continue to allow God to dig deeper and deeper within us, to see the need, and to be available for God to use us, knowing I need changing better than anybody. Amen.